G'day guys, you're back with MiracleMAX. Guess what's in our workshop today via a tilt tray? Well, it's a VZ Commodore 2005 model V6 engine. Why was it dragged in? Well, the thing just wouldn't start. The customer stated that he went to start it. There was a real strong electrical smell and there was a puff of white smoke over in the left-hand side of the engine bay. What's electrical? What helps start the engine? And what's on the left-hand side of the engine bay? Well, the starter motor, of course. Let's just throw in another starter. Well, that's not the answer. What's the problem? Well, we'll check it out together. Max the mechanic is the man. You fix it all, yes he can. With a joke and a cheer, your car troubles disappear. As already stated, the starter motor is located on the left-hand side of the engine bay, and it could be faulty, that's true, but there are other tests that we need to do first. What do they include? Well, first of all, we need to make sure that the battery is in good condition and it's got enough juice to get this motor up and running. So let's check that first. Well, it certainly looks newish, doesn't it? And it's got blue there, so it must be okay. Well, no, let's do a proper test, hey? It's a little bit low, 12.3, but let's crank the engine and see what it does then. Right, go into the cranking position now. And I've got nothing. What do we go to? 12.2, made no difference, did it? Okay, so the battery is in reasonable condition, but let's go further toward the starter motor. Of course, all the lights are on the dash, so there's no blown fuses or anything in that particular regard. Where should we go next? Let's go toward our fuse box here and have a look at the starter motor relay. But before I get to my relay, I thought, well, I should do a proper battery check. It looks like a new battery and I haven't replaced it. Perhaps the customer did it himself. I also noticed that down in here, the battery hold down clamp bracket is missing. The bolt's there, but the bracket's missing. So she's just flopping around in the breeze there. So before I put on my little tester, because I can't use my Pico one because it's not actually cranking at the moment, I thought, yeah, well, normal checks. Oh, hang on a sec, that's a bit loose. And hello, what's happening here? That looks a little bit loosey-goosey in my opinion, so I'm just gonna pull that out the road for now and stick that over here, and I'll do a proper check on my battery with my tester guy here, and we should be able to see if the battery itself is in good condition. And the survey says, it says that it's good, state of charge is 55%. Reason being is perhaps because that terminal there is loose, it hasn't been charging the battery properly. So we'll just see, this may be the answer or it may not be the answer. So I need to clean those terminals and then tighten them properly. I've done the battery terminals, cleaned them both sides, made sure they're all schmickoid, using a battery terminal cleaner, post cleaner, all that sort of stuff. And I've done a recheck of my battery, and yes, it's still saying that it needs recharge. It's down to 26% there according to my little reader there, and we're down to 12.2. But the important thing is what happens when we turn the key. Have a listen. So you can hear relays and bits and pieces clicking on that they weren't there before, and I also had the automatic headlights come on, but I've turned them off. Let's go to the start position, and we've got nothing. Although, have a listen when we go to the start position. Really listen. Did you hear that? You could hear the relay click, couldn't you? I'm going to go to the relay anyway. That's my next port of call. So the relay itself is, let's have a look here. I'll turn on some light there for you guys. Oh, there we go. And our start relay is this guy right here. So that should be that fella there. I'll pull that out and then we'll do some checks, but I feel pretty confident that it's actually clicking. In actual fact, if I put my finger on it, yep, I heard it click. So, what do I not need to check? Well, I know it's sort of lazy man's way, but the relay is being energised by pin number 86 and 85. So I need to make sure that it's got power at pin 30, and then I can bypass it to pin 87. Confusing? Let me show you. Just to give you a bit of a heads up into the exciting world of relays, we've got a relay here at rest and we have one energised. So in other words, one here is turned on and the other is turned off. So what we're going to have is a little tiny bit of current going through an electromagnet here, and that will pull over this switch here, which will allow high current to pass. So I don't really need to check here at this low current circuit because I could feel the relay go click, 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 click like that. Is it closing this circuit or not? I don't know. What I can check is once this is energized is to see if there's power passing through this section here. Now I've got a toolkit that I can use for that, or I could simply bypass this with a fused wire. I'll show you both methods. This Lisle relay test kit is awesome. I will show you how to use it shortly, but I'll do a big reveal for you right now. Suss it out. Voila, inside, so you've got all the adapters, etc., which is really useful, but I'll show you how to actually use it now. Included in this particular kit was a relay pulling pliers, very useful. So you just get in beside the relay without damaging it, and you can just gently pull it out. Hey presto. Have a good look at the terminals, make sure they're in good nick, no problems there, no corrosion, no burn marks, etc., so I'm happy with that. So we're going to pop in our adapter, that's this guy here, I think it's the purple one, that should do the trick. You can see that they line up, the pins line up. And now I can do testing at these pins here. Makes it a lot easier, and I can stick my relay on the top there like this. On he goes like that. So it's just operating now, but I've got test areas here. So one of the pins, one of the main pins, pin 30 no doubt, should have power at all times. Let's see what we've got there. We've got power there at all times, you can see that. Now another one should have earth at all times because, let's have a look. Yep, there should be an earth at all times. So I'm just going to switch this from the negative side of my battery to the positive side of my battery over this side. And now there should be a ground there at all times, not that one. See, I was able to click the relay on because I'm grounding that wiring. I'm grounding that circuit. I was grounding the ECU as well. But when we turn the ignition to on, we should have power that goes all the way through. Unfortunately, with this relay, we can't actually see how it's wired up. They don't have a little picture on it. Now, normally, if it was a Bosch one, they would have a picture drawn on it, but we can figure it out. Let's head over to the bench and I'll show you how to do that. Now that the relay's on the bench, I can actually see the numbers on the back. I didn't see that before, so I can figure it out quite easily. The coil should be between pin 86 and pin 85. Those two pins there generally should be the coil wire, but let's not get caught out by that. Yes, we're reading 62 ohms, so 30 and 87, those two pins are the ones that we need to bypass or power up to see if we can get the starter motor to work. Then that way it'll tell us if it's a relay or a power feed or something along those lines as opposed to the starter motor itself. So according to this little diagram here, we've got pin 30 and we've got pin 87. Pin 30 will have power at all times. That should be the guy. I'm going to use my test light now. And that should be the guy located right here. And that should have power at all times. See that? Yep, no probs. Now all we're going to do is bypass this pin here, pin 30, across to pin 87, which is that guy there. Those two. I'm going to use my fused jumper wire at this point, and normally I have male and female fittings connected to it. So in other words, this will be female on this side, and when I pull this apart, it'll be male right there. So you just make up a few little extension leads, etc. So all I'm going to do is go between these 2 points, those two guys there, between pin 30 and pin 87. Let's see what happens. What should happen? Well, the starter motor should crank over. There's pin 30, there's pin 87. And we've got absolutely nothing. We need to head down to the starter motor, hey? So to gain access to any wiring or do some voltage measurements at the starter, I've had to remove this heat shield. Now it's held in by a T25 Torx bit. Correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure you will. But one thing I did, having a close visual at the starter motor, is quite interesting. I disconnected the battery before I pulled that heat shield off because I didn't want to short it into anything. But if you have a close look, I might try and zoom in there for you guys, bear with. Have a look at that terminal right there. Is it focusing? I hope. There's a lot of melted plastic there, so it's obviously had a short of some description. He did say there was a puff of smoke from the left hand side. That could be the melting of the plastic and that electrical smell that he mentioned. So I still need to do some more testing. Is it the terminal that's faulty, or is it the starter motor that's knackered itself? Although having melted plastic on there is probably not a good thing, hey? I must admit there is disadvantages working by yourself. Obviously I can't do a voltage measurement here and at the same time turn the key. So what I intend doing is going like that, that's on the terminal itself, and the other end I'm just going to hook up to a globe, and that'll tell me if I'm getting power through that connector right down onto the terminal of the solenoid on the starter motor. One side is on the actual terminal, not the connector, but the terminal that goes into the starter motor solenoid. The other end is connected to ground right here, and I've just got a little globe sitting here so I can visually see it because, hey, I don't have really long arms. I should be able to see it glow when I turn the ignition to the start position. Let's give that a whirl. Keep in mind that I've put my relay back into place, back in here, and that's all buttoned up. The battery is now reconnected as well. And I've got power going through that globe, so in theory the starter motor should crank. What other tests do we need to do before we can confirm that? The only other test that I really need to do is the battery terminal, this guy here that goes all the way down to the starter motor, and make sure that that has a good 12 volts going to it. I'm going to check that on the actual bolt or the connector that goes into the starter motor as opposed to the wiring itself, just to confirm that the voltage is getting all the way to the starter itself. Same test, I'm just going to use this guy here, but I'm going to connect it up to my starter motor, and that should come on as soon as I connect it. It's not going through any start system at all, it's powered all the time. And that there should be on now. I'm actually on the starter motor itself. Let's have a look. And that globe is on there. It doesn't seem exceedingly bright, but just keep in mind this here is only 0.42 of an amp, so maybe I should use the other one just to confirm that we're getting enough voltage going through it. Right, so we've got power there at all times, that's good. I'm just going to check also with my multimeter just to confirm that you know, we've got good voltage at that particular point, which we have. When I had it hooked up before, I was connected to this little point right here, okay? And that checks, that goes into the solenoid itself. I'm on the other side of that. I might just disassemble this, hopefully. That should now make it a fraction clearer, a little bit, as to where I've got my other one on. That's the main battery wire, that guy there. And we can see that the globe is working properly. So either way, the starter motor's got to come out, and I'll speak to the customer about installing a new one. It's probably not worth just doing the solenoid itself. Okay, I'm just about to pull out the starter motor. Got authority from the customer. I've pulled off my battery, my main battery lead. That was quite easy. I think that was like a 13 mil. And then there should be just a couple of bolts here and here. One little guy here and another little guy just up there. So once those are out, I don't know if you've got to do anything with the exhaust, but it doesn't. There's a fair bit of clearance in here, so I'm hoping it should just slide out. Just to double confirm my diagnosis by bench testing the starter motor, just to prove that I've got it correct. Now I've got a battery down here. I've just checked my battery. It's down there. That's what I've got that guy and that guy hooked up to, positive and negative. And that battery I just tested is at 12.4 volts. So that's good enough in my books. So what we need to do is, this is our connector that comes from our relay that ultimately comes from you turning the key. So I'm just going to hook onto that, and we just need to supply power to that. And we can do that simply by going here. I ain't got nothing. However, just to prove that it's the solenoid that's faulty and not the motor, we can just ignore that, because the solenoid basically has a bar going between here and here, and that, when you turn your key, clunk, like that, puts power here, pulls a little solenoid back, which puts a bar between this guy and this guy. So all I can do, or all I need to do, is bypass that, and the starter motor should go at least around. Oh, sounds healthy too, doesn't it? Oh, she's nasty, mate. So in this case, I'm going to recommend the entire starter motor, not just the solenoid, because you heard it. The vehicle itself's done like 270 something thousand Ks. So yeah, she's due for replacement anyway. But you can see here, it's had a bit of a meltdown, hey. So time to chuck in another starter. So I've got the new starter. I'm using the Delux brand. Hopefully that's okay. Part number in this particular case is 706253, but check because they do have several different starters. And just to prove that this starter is okay, I'm going to power it up exactly the same way I did with the old one, but I'm going to put power to this control wire, which comes from your relay, which in turn comes from your ignition switch. So just power it up and it should. Nice. Okay, I feel confident to fit it to the vehicle now. So just to summarise, the bolts that needed to come out, firstly to get this heat shield off was a T25. To get the nut off the main battery lead was a 13mm. And these little guys here, the bolts that hold the starter in, are 11mm. You can get away with 11mm spanner on there. I did that to start with, just to loosen them, and then I got a little tiny ratchet on there with 11mm socket, and came out nicely. Not a difficult job, and the starter itself, you're able to wiggle past the exhaust system no problemo. New one's in place, all buttoned up, including the heat shield. All I need to do now is reconnect the battery and turn the key. And hey presto, away she goes. Try that again a few times. I'd say that's a success. There you go, there's another one off the list. Wasn't really a hard repair, was it? Did I waste my time diagnosing the thing? Well, it did have loose battery terminals. The battery is quite flat. It did have a burn mark down at the solenoid itself. It could have been a poor connection there. So being able to isolate exactly what the fault was, going ahead and feeling confident to actually buy a starter motor and fit it to the vehicle, knowing 100% that my diagnosis had proven it true. Hey, I hope this video proved it true for you too. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, feel free to comment down below. Don't forget about that notification bell. You don't want to miss any future videos. Catch up with us on Facebook and Insta just to see what's happening in the workshop as well as the electronics lab. In the meantime, feel free to search across the channel and check out other relevant videos that might interest you. So until next time guys, this is MiracleMAX signing off. I will catch you later.